Good morning. Hi there, everybody. I joined you a little late. Apologies. Well, I'm going to get started. It's a beautiful day out there, at least right now it is. It's supposed to rain later on. Today is Sunday, May 17th, and I'm going to be talking about the correction of errors and read to you from a couple different sources. Good morning, Nancy. Thanks for joining in. Hi, Olivia. I joined a little late, so I may have delayed everything here. It's nice outside, isn't it? All right. So I'm going to read a couple of things here. I'm going to read from A Course in Miracles. I'm also going to read from a book by Rolf Gates. And it's called The Correction of Error. Interesting to listen to this. So let me begin. And there's quite a bit I'm going to read. So good morning, everybody. The alertness of the ego to the errors of other egos is not the kind of vigilance the Holy Spirit would have you maintain. Egos are critical in terms of the kind of sense, quote unquote, they stand for. They understand this kind of sense because it is sensible to them. To spirit, it makes no sense at all. So to the ego, it is kind and right and good to point out errors in others and correct them. This makes perfect sense to the ego, which is unaware of what errors are and what correction is. That sentence makes me laugh. So errors are of the ego, and correction of errors lies in the relinquishment of the ego. So the ego cannot correct anything, because ego is where all errors come from. Egos don't come from Holy Spirit. When you correct another, you are telling that person that he or she is wrong. And we've all done this. We've all corrected people. That person may be making no sense at the time, and it is certain that if she is speaking from the ego, she will not be making any sense. But your task, listen to this, is to tell that person that she is right. You do not say this verbally if she is speaking or acting foolishly. She needs correction at another level because her error is at another level. She is still right because she is a child of God. Her ego, however, is always wrong, no matter what it says or does. If you point out the errors of another's ego, you must be seen through your ego, because the Holy Spirit does not perceive errors. So I'm going to stop reading from this book, and I'm going to jump over to Rolf Gates. And he writes something that he's titled Self-Forgiveness. So let me read this. I began the process of forgiving myself with no sense of the effect it would have on my life. I was 5 days into a very well-led and effective meditation retreat, and I was in the zone. It was an afternoon sitting session, and we were being taught to review our lives in 10-year increments. Decade by decade, we allowed an unresolved moment or unskillful behavior to come to us and then offered ourselves forgiveness for being imperfect, making mistakes, and having to learn about life through living it. As I went through the decades of my life, I was able to really feel into who I was in that moment. I could see and feel the level of confusion and pain that accompanied my unskilled behavior. I saw how ignorant I was of what I could only know by living longer, by being me longer. I saw how if I had known then what I know now, I would have chosen differently. I saw how I had confused the person with the behavior. The person I met in these time-traveling meditations was always doing the best he could with the hand he thought he had been dealt, and that I could forgive. I like the sentence where he says, I saw how I had confused the person with the behavior. So he realized that person who he is, his higher self, if you will, is not who he always behaved as or acted out as. So to continue on from A Course in Miracles, the ego makes no sense, and the spirit does not attempt to understand that anything that arises from ego. Since spirit does not understand it, spirit does not judge it, knowing that nothing the ego makes means anything. So when you react at all to errors, you are not listening to spirit. Spirit merely disregards errors. So think of today. Everything that's going on today. Everything that's going on today. From the political leadership to the medical community to all the dissension that's going on. And how we have responded or reacted. So many of us have reacted. Some have responded. And if you're going against anything, you're probably reacting and coming from ego. Now, two people, by the way, can go in the same direction, but one person is going for something and another person is going against that same something, or away from another something, if you follow what I'm saying. Okay? So you got to figure out in your heart what your motivation is. Where are you coming from? I'm going to continue on. So when you react at all to errors, you're not listening to the spirit. Spirit merely disregards any errors, and if you attend to them, you are not hearing spirit. If you do not hear spirit, you are listening to your ego and making as little sense as the person whose errors you perceive. This is not correction, yet it is more than merely a lack of correction for the other. Because remember in the beginning I said, we think it's kind and good and right to correct another. This is merely more than merely a lack of correction for another. It is actually the giving up of correction in yourself when you perceive an error in another. When someone behaves insanely, you can heal that person only by perceiving the sanity in that person. Did you get that? If someone is behaving insanely, in order for you to correct or heal that person, you can only focus in on the sane, that which is quote unquote right. If you perceive that person's errors and accept them, then you are accepting yours. Oh no, I'm better than that. The reason I can see that person's errors is because I've made that mistake before. Well, yeah, you've made that mistake before. You're perceiving your own errors in that other person. You're projecting out, and you're trying to do right and correct. But when you do that, it's coming from ego. And you might have quite a bit of discussion within your own head trying to understand what is being said here. If you perceive errors in another and accept them, you are accepting your own errors. If you want to give your errors over to spirit, you must do this with that other person's. So in other words, you don't just pray for yourself, you pray for another. And you don't just pray for another, you pray for yourself. What you do for yourself, you do for another. What you do for another, you do for yourself, because none of us are separate at all. Unless this becomes the one way in which you handle all errors, you cannot understand how all errors are undone. How is this different from telling you that what you teach, you learn? Your brother and sister is as right as you are. And if you think that person is wrong, you are condemning yourself. So let me say it this way. Jesus never saw an error in another. Didn't see it. Didn't even see it. Jesus focused in on what was good, quote unquote, on what was right, on what would be uplifting. The other thing is, you cannot correct yourself. Is it possible then? So Einstein said it. He has a famous quote that I'm going to bastardize right now, but he basically says you cannot solve a problem within the same domain in which it was created. That's why in the corporate world we always used to hear, step outside the box. We need you to step outside the box so we can think differently. We can get out of this problem we're in. Well, no one can step outside the box because the box is your subconscious mind, and it's almost impossible unless you're trained. And it is a skill, so everybody can be trained to think outside the box or to think differently, or to stop thinking like the masses do, especially in this day and age. So you cannot correct yourself. Is it possible then for you to correct another? Yet you can see that person truly, because it is possible for you to see yourself truly. So are you looking at that person with your ego eyes or with your spiritual eyes? It's not up to you to change your brother or sister, but merely to accept that person as she is. Her errors do not come from the truth that is in her, but from the ego. Yet only this truth is yours. Her errors cannot change this and can have no effect at all on the truth in you. To perceive errors in anyone and to react to them as if they were real is to make them real to you. And now you just sunk yourself when you do that. All right, I'm going to stop reading. There's more, but I'm going to stop. So, boy, all of us should be able to relate to that, because we do all of that. I know I do. I'm always looking to help someone. So if I see someone, and I'll take something real simple. I teach yoga, as you know, so I can see people's poses, and if it needs alignment, I have gotten in the habit of sometimes saying, no, you're wrong, okay? I don't say that anymore, but I've said that in the past. You know, do it this way, this is the right, or do it this way, this is the right way of doing it. I told this story quite a while ago, but about 12, 13, 14 years ago, I decided to stop using negative words or contractions. So a negative word would be not, don't, can't, won't, shouldn't. Okay, and those are also contractions, those examples. And I decided to stop using them. It took me a full year to stop using those words in my yoga classes. And I realized that after I was doing this for a while, that more than half the people in the class could not hear what I was saying. They could not hear just positive words. They would not react or respond to just positive words. They could not hear. I had to go back and stop or start saying, don't. No, do it this way. No. Can't. Don't. I had to start doing that again. And it took me a whole year to stop doing that because people couldn't hear positive only. And I'm telling you, with what I'm reading, you got to start positive only. Mother Teresa at one point said, don't ever ask me to protest against anything. I will, however, go out and be part of a group that is in favor of something. Are you getting what I'm saying? So it's the same thing here. Many times we think we are in alignment with our spirit or with Holy Spirit, if you will. And many times we're not. We're in alignment with our ego, thinking we're doing right. And it's a fine line, and it's difficult to discern. But if it brings joy to your heart and you're a balanced person, you're in alignment with Spirit or Holy Spirit. And if it just gives you pride in correcting another because you help them out, that's pride is not of ego, or pride is not of spirit. It is of ego. So it's stuff worth considering, taking a look at. So this is what we're going to do. What time is it? We're going to take the next 15 minutes and we're going to go into our zone, go into our meditation. Take a look at a decade. We'll follow what Rolf did in what I read to you. Take a look at any decade, any 10-year period of your life, and look at your behaviors, especially any in which you have not forgiven yourself. And do just that. Forgive yourself for something or a number of things you've done over a 10-year span that you haven't, or you've had a hard time forgiving yourself. Let it go. Just let it go. Give it up to God, give it to Spirit, give it to Jesus, whoever you communicate with and it works for you, allow that to happen. So we're going to go silent for the next 13 or 14 minutes. Close your eyes, everybody. I'll lead you through the beginning part of this just to get you into it, and then you'll be within your own space. So get yourself comfortable, sit in a chair. You don't need to sit on the floor, but if that's comfortable for you, you can do that. Close your eyes. If you're wearing glasses, take them off. You don't need them. Bring your lips together, start to breathe through your nose. Slow the breath down. Take deeper inhales and more complete exhales. Then begin to focus in and take any 10-year period. If there's anything out there you've done that is behaviorally that you're not happy with, still not happy with, go into that. Feel it for a moment. And then let it go by truly forgiving yourself and anyone else involved in that scene. As you are doing this, you are not to feel remorse, but release. You are unburdening. You are doing this to let go, not to feel the feelings you felt back then, or to re-guilt yourself. Keeping in mind everything that's happened in your life can be viewed as a blessing, or you can view it as a problem. And I recommend the former. That was a teaching moment. hands together. Start to rub them, generating some heat, placing them over your eyes, opening your eyes, releasing your hands, coming back to this time. I want to ask you a question, and it has off topic of what I've been talking about. Facebook has the ability to do interactive, and I'm not sure it works yet. I tested it out, I think, last Sunday, and it didn't seem to work, so I'm not sure it does. But if anybody wants this class to be interactive, please make a comment, and it'd be like being together. I want to keep this class on Facebook rather than moving it to Zoom like I have my yoga classes, because some people don't want to do Zoom. And if anybody here is on the call who wants to do my yoga classes on Zoom, let me know that also, and I'll send you the link. So if you would, let me know what you're thinking. Otherwise, have a great day. Enjoy the sunshine while it lasts. It's supposed to rain later on, so get out there right now if you can. Thanks, everybody. Namaste.